Brandon, and I'm an alcoholic and addict in recovery. And today I'm continuing discussion about coaddiction as defined by authors Gorski and Miller in their book, Staying Sober. So just to go over the definition that they're using again, they define a coaddict as anyone whose life has become unmanageable as a result of living in a committed relationship with an addicted person. So to sum up what I've talked about in the last couple of videos and what they discuss here, coaddiction has its own set of symptoms. And these symptoms often revolve around taking care of the other person and doing whatever you need to cope with the addictive symptoms and the behaviors of the addictive person in their active addiction. Now, what happens is when the addicted person stops using and starts to recover and starts in a program of recovery, the coaddictive person also needs treatment for their coaddiction. If they don't receive that treatment, they are in danger of continuing the coaddictive behaviors that they were using to cope with the addiction. But the addiction is now in recovery. So the addicted person's behaviors have changed. So now you've got a different dynamic going on. You've got a coaddictive person who is continuing behavior that they used to cope with an addictive person who's no longer using or behaving in that addictive manner anymore. And this creates a situation that can cause the type of stress and actually instigate a recurrence of alcohol or drug use in the addicted person. So this is not in any way meant to blame the co-addicted person for the addicted person's behavior. It's not meant to do that at all. But what we have to do is acknowledge that the co-addicted person's behavior has an impact on the addicted person's behavior and vice versa. And that's why treatment for alcoholism and drug addiction has to involve the entire family. And it's something that we cannot expect the addict to be the only one in recovery. The co-addict is in recovery as well. And that requires treatment, it requires support. That's why there are specific support groups for co-addicts. Al-Anon is a support group for co-addicts. And it is, how do I recover myself from the state that I was in when I was supporting this person in their addiction? And just like addicts, co-addicts can relapse back into the behavior patterns that they had adopted to cope with addiction. And so today I was reading about some of the relapse warning signs for co-addiction. So these are some signs that the co-addict is starting to go back into a state where their life is unmanageable. And that's what we're really looking at here. And the way that the authors state it is a condition of co-addict relapse may be more difficult to identify. Without an ongoing recovery program and proper care of oneself, old feelings and behaviors thought to be under control may surface and become out of control. Life again becomes unmanageable. The co-addict is in relapse. And so these, just like the alcoholic or addict has a pattern of behavior that has to change and be arrested in order to recover from their disease, the co-addict has to do the same thing with their own behavior. That's why treatment for the family as a whole is such an important part of recovery. Some of the warning signs for returning to co-addictive behavior are things like loss of daily structure. Something happens, child gets sick, you've got a big layoff or something that disrupts life significantly, that you have what should be a temporary loss of daily structure as you just kind of do what you need to do to survive. And then once things start to return to normal, the co-addict finds it difficult to return to a normal daily structure. Lack of personal care. This is something that might have happened in while the addiction was active. The co-addict may not have had time to take care of themselves in the way that people should be able to, because they were caring for the addict. And so that behavior coming back during recovery is a sign that the co-addict may be relapsing or moving toward a relapse of their behavior. Inability to effectively set and maintain limits, loss of constructive planning, indecision, so the inability to think ahead about plans for the future, and then indecision about things that should be relatively easy decisions to make. Compulsive behavior, fatigue or lack of rest, return of unreasonable resentments. So this is something that I've heard a lot of addicts in recovery deal with, is a spouse who will return to resentments and anger about things that happened during addiction. And most of the people I know understand this is a part of the healing process, especially in early recovery. Just because you have gone through rehab and you have turned over a new leaf and you're going to meetings and doing all the right things doesn't mean that there's still not wreckage in your past that needs to be dealt with. And your spouse may continue to carry some anger and some resentment about that. Again, that's why it's important for them to also be receiving treatment to learn how to deal with those things the same way you are learning how to deal with resentment about your past and move forward into the future without it. Return of the tendency to control people, situations, and things, and defensiveness. So defensiveness especially, the codependent person may not totally approve of some of his or her actions, but when challenged will openly justify the actions in a sharp or angry way. Self-pity, overspending or worrying about money, eating disorders, eating too much, eating too little, scapegoating, blaming other people, places, and things, return of fear or general anxiety, loss of belief in a higher power. Attendance at Al-Anon becomes sporadic. Now, a lot of the addicts that I've talked to have trouble getting their spouses to go to Al-Anon or other support meetings at all. And so, again, this is, and a lot of times, and I understand this, a lot of times the attitude is, why should I disrupt my life? Why should I do even more to support you when I've done all of these things in the past? Recovery is something that the addict should be doing, and I should be able to get back to a normal life. And I completely understand where people are coming from when they think that way. But the fact is that coaddiction is a real thing, and in order to recover from it, it's something that the co-addict has to actually have a recovery program. Part of that recovery program, and one of the most effective ways to do it, is to be involved in support groups like Al-Anon, where you specifically learn about how to live productively with someone who is an addict in recovery. What it's like, what you need to do to deal with everything you had to deal with when that person was in their active addiction. Other symptoms of return to this behavior are mind racing, inability to construct a logical chain of thought, confusion, sleep disturbance, artificial emotion, definition there, the coaddict begins to exhibit feelings without a conscious knowledge of why. He or she may become emotional for no reason at all. Behavioral loss of control, losing temper, yelling, throwing things, getting upset, visibly upset, and that's a sign that things are moving back to the unmanageable territory. Uncontrollable mood swings, failure to maintain interpersonal support systems, and isolation. Tunnel vision. So no matter what the issue or situation might be, the coaddict focuses on his or her opinion or decision and is unable to see other points of view. Return of anxiety or panic attacks, health problems, use of alcohol as a means to cope. So if you are a coaddict and you are starting to use alcohol as a means to cope with things during the recovery of your spouse, that's a sign there's a problem. And that's a sign that you need to seek treatment for that problem. Total abandonment of support meetings, inability to change self-defeating behaviors, development of an I don't care attitude, complete loss of daily structure, despair, suicidal ideation, major physical collapse. This is physical symptoms become so severe that medical attention is required, or major emotional collapse. This is where there's just an emotional breakdown and the coaddict cannot think of anything else they can do to cope with life. So these are a very, very comprehensive list of the types of issues that can come up for a coaddict during the recovery process. These are all things that can happen while their partner is in recovery. And so it's very important to know these, but also very important to stress that this is why recovery for the family, recovery for people who are partners of addicts in recovery is so important. It's not just something that the alcoholic or drug addict can do by themselves. It's something that they need the family to do with them in order to fully recover and get the family to a place where they are living a productive, sober life together. So I hope this is helpful. Tomorrow I will go through more of the family prevention plans for recurrence of drug and alcohol use. And in the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful day.